Thanks so much for coming this morning. We're really excited about this. We waited a long time for this. I'll tell you about the history of the Nonprofit Institute in a little bit. But this is the official kickoff. And this is, and I want to emphasize this again and again, this is St. Mary's Nonprofit Institute. We're here to serve the nonprofit community, whether they receive funding from the county, whether they don't, whether it's a large nonprofit, whether it's a small nonprofit, whether it's a nonprofit that's just getting off the ground. We understand how important nonprofits are and how our society cannot function effectively, and I don't have to tell you all this, you know. But without nonprofits, we would not be a society. And how can we all come together in this kind of format, work together to ensure that our services to the citizens of St. Mary's County is as good and effective as they can be? That's what it's all about. Just some quotes to start with, and again, I'm preaching to the choir. Connecting people and organizations, so critically important. One thing we don't realize is how large the nonprofit community is in Maryland and the United States. As you can see, there's over 1.5 million nonprofits and growing. Every day there's more nonprofits that are springing up because to fill needs. In Maryland, as you can see, there are 32,000 nonprofit organizations. Now, not all of them are officially chartered, but these are in existence today. St. Mary's County, and again, the number changes, and the VCC may have a different number, but the number on a website, an official website, is 319 nonprofits. I don't know if that surprises you or not. That's a gigantic number as far as I'm concerned. But taking a closer look, as you can see, employing over 250,000 individuals in the country, in Maryland, and the private workforce, 1 out of 7 work or associated with a nonprofit organization. Wages of almost $14 billion. A major footprint. More employment than all of these sectors, transportation, real estate, insurance, put together. In terms of Southern Maryland, Charles County has the largest number, Calvert the smallest number. Employment, as you can see, at least according to our statistics, about 2,000 individuals are employed in St. Mary's nonprofit community in 2001. Also, we can't minimize the number of volunteers. No nonprofit can thrive, can do the kind of job it really wants to do, needs to do, without its valuable volunteers. As you can see, over 100,000 full-time equivalent volunteers are serving in Maryland's nonprofit sector. And so if you add everything together, as you can see, over 1/3 people are engaged in nonprofit work, volunteer, paid, whatever, but making our society better than it is, more than any other industry in the state. These are dramatic numbers. Just want to mention a little bit about the history, because this is not an organization that just happened last year. It started in conversations where I engaged the 3 executive directors of the United Ways during the summer of 2009, went to get their support of the creation of a nonprofit institute. Would they support an entity based at the college, a collaborative effort that would provide mainly training, because that's what we do best, on how nonprofits can do even a better job than they're currently doing to support them. Unfortunately, 2 out of the 3 are no longer with us. Only the person from Calvert County is still in her position. We launched our first annual conference. We've had now 3 of them, right, Vivian? We're working on a 4th, in April of 2010, and our training began the following fall. And I knew very early on that we were doing this on a shoestring, and many of the nonprofits were saying, we need more. We need someone we can go to if we have questions. And so the idea then was generated, can we get some permanent staff that can work directly with our nonprofits? So we approached Charles County first, and they funded the Nonprofit Institute in Charles County in November of this past year. St. Mary's County funded the Nonprofit Institute with the current budget year, and Calvert County, we will be approaching them for next year. So in other words, we wanted to phase it in rather than boom all at once. And I'm going to introduce a couple people now. One person who's in the back of the room, Vivian Mills, is the coordinator of our Charles County Nonprofit Institute. And you're going to be meeting Tammy Vitale in just a minute. She is your representative here in St. Mary's County, and very seldom have I met a more passionate person who is so thrilled to be in the current position. And so just an overview of the kinds of things that the Nonprofit Institute is engaged in. And what's going to happen right now, people have asked, what's the future? Right now, they're quasi-independent. We have funding from St. Mary's, we have funding from Charles County. We keep the funding separate. But there will be a lot of collaboration. And when Calvert County comes on board, maybe we'll all combine to have, one large nonprofit institute. We'll have to see. Whatever works best for St. Mary's County, for instance. We are going to be forming an advisory council. I've talked to some, Tammy has talked to some of you. This is not the college's possession. This is your nonprofit institute. It's just housed at the college. So we need a very strong advisory council that's going to help to guide the nonprofit institute. We don't want to be providing services that aren't valued and aren't needed. And we want to know what is needed. And I know you aren't shy, and you'll tell us what you need. But I think it's very important that we have that sense of this is a collaborative organization. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of workshops. And the workshops that Tammy, Tammy just came on. When did you start, Tammy? Okay, the beginning of September, and many of you have met Tammy because she's making the rounds, meeting with people. Vivian has, she got started earlier, so she's already set up a number of workshops, and that's why so many that you're invited to are in Charles County. Tammy, as she sets hers up, are going to be here in St. Mary's County, but you'll have the opportunity to take all of them, and what's going to happen is they're going to collaborate. So it's not going to be the same ones in each county. It's going to be a full array of programs, and I think that's going to be critically important. We're talking about having informal groups. Imagine whatever we're going to call it, and Tammy's probably going to talk a little bit more about this, but inviting the CEOs or the executive directors of the nonprofits to come together, whether it's monthly, whether it's quarterly, whether it's lunch, whether it's breakfast, brown bag, talking about issues, bringing everyone together. The same kind of thing perhaps for the chairs of the boards, to share, to collaborate. Because without this kind of structure, oftentimes, you're all working, you all have busy lives. Here we have someone whose responsibility it is to really pull everyone together. Partnerships, we do want to bring down Maryland nonprofits. It's a major organization. It's expensive. And who wants to go all the way up to Silver Spring or to Baltimore for training? And so we may be funding workshops, for instance, and you'll pay very little because of the funding we receive from the county. But a lot of interactions in that regard. We're also looking at, obviously, the annual conference. I don't have it here, but one of the things we are looking at is certificates. So whether it's a board person or a employee, we may have a certificate program where you can get a certificate in nonprofit marketing or nonprofit development, fundraising, or executive leadership. It might be like 5 or 6 modules. And there you see a very nice comprehensive approach in terms of how to better do your position. One-on-one assistance. And that's what Tammy and Vivian get a lot of. And that's what we want. If you have a question, if you're not certain about IRS requirements or about, consultants, or about, how do you handle a wayward volunteer or getting more volunteers. We want you to call the Nonprofit Institute first, rather than wondering who should I be calling now. They're not going to answer questions on the IRS. They may direct you to. And remember, there were changes in the 990s and how you had to file, and you all basically had to figure it out on your own. What we want to do is when these regulations pop up, we want to pull you all in and say, okay, let's talk about this, because this is something that's going to affect all of you. So you're not working, independently trying to recreate your own wheels. The Leadership Southern Maryland had their class last year. I don't know if anyone was associated with it. They did a survey of, I believe, the nonprofits to say, would you use a network of pro bono professionals? There are lots of professionals in the community, accountants and attorneys and CPAs, et cetera, who would love to provide pro bono services. Now, we can't do it so that, they're not making any money, but we are looking to have a structure where if you've got an issue about something that can be answered in a telephone call, perhaps, here's someone or someone's you might want to consider. And so we'll be contacting all the professionals. We're not going to pick and choose, and provide lists that you can work with. And ultimately, you might want to employ them. But to have a resource, and that takes time to develop that resource, that's something that the Nonprofit Institute is going to be doing. Research, data sharing, the website. One of the things we really want to get into, in fact, I was talking to Susan this morning about it, was the issue of online giving. And how do we help all of you? If you don't have a robust website, if you have issues relating to fundraising, how can we work with you on it? We're not going to raise money for you, but we can consult. And there may be, and we'll talk to an advisory council about this, we're looking at the possibility of a major fundraising online 24-hour bash. We did this, the college, I don't know if you read about this, in the Washington, D.C. area, and some of you may have participated. I think it was a year ago, and it was called the Big Give, and there were hundreds and thousands of nonprofits in the Washington area that all participated, lots of marketing, and we raised thousands of dollars. But it takes, an individual organization can do it on their website. They can have a button. But imagine if we were to promote it all of Southern Maryland or all of St. Mary's during this period of time. We're going to have this big give, and here's all the list of organizations that are participating. Again, it's just germinating. But these are just some examples of the kinds of things that we see the Nonprofit Institute doing. And I emphasize, we don't want to do anything that you guys don't want us to do, don't need us to do, but there's so much that we could be doing. And I think the major areas are going to be in the area of training and collaboration, and to promote that. Because we're all in this together, and I think if we all work together, we're going to make St. Mary's County even stronger than it is. So I'm really excited about this morning as we launch this program. I'm going to introduce a couple people now, actually 3 people, and then I'm going to give you the snapshot of the St. Mary's County and the nonprofit community. Excuse me. Our Commissioner President, Jack Russell, has always been very supportive, I know, of the nonprofit community. And I'm very pleased that he's here today, and I'm going to ask if he'd come up and say a few words. Jack?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Brad, and thank you. Folks, I would like to look at this from a Tri-County perspective. We've got many initiatives to make Tri-County area more viable in the future. I see this as one of the superior ways of us being able to strengthen our commitments to our communities. What one of us don't know, somebody else over on the other hand probably does. So we have different strengths and weaknesses that we can work out amongst ourselves. I commend you all for coming here today, and I'm looking forward to be a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it.
Very good, sir.
Thank you. We're also blessed here in St. Mary's County having a new county administrator, Dr. Rebecca Bridget, who brings such a wealth of experience. I mean, a big heart. She oversaw social services in Charles County, and I believe that St. Mary's County is blessed to have her as county executive. And I'd like to have her come up if she would, and say a few words.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you very much for having me here this morning. We look forward to the Nonprofit Institute partnering with Charles County, as Commissioner Russell said, that it's really an opportunity for synergy and a greater impact on our community to be able to help people because I believe, and I'm sure we all believe, that when we help people, then we're a stronger community, and that's really what the nonprofits are all about. And as Brad said, I started in a nonprofit a long time ago, and then I worked with Department of Social Services before I was a county administrator, and so I really do have a strong passion, and any way that I can assist with the Nonprofit Institute, I'm happy to do that. Thank you very much.
I'd also like to introduce a very important person at the College of Southern Maryland, and that is Dr. Tracy Harris. I think many of you know him, who's the Dean and Vice President of the campus. Thank you, Tracy. And now, without further ado, the person of honor who is actually on the ground, who's been putting a lot of miles on her car, meeting with many of you, and she even has business cards, which is even more important, Tammy Vitale.
Good morning. How are you this morning? Good. I'm so glad to see you here. You saw all of the information about nonprofits in this county. Isn't that awesome? This is what I want you all to do. Take your right hand, cross it over in front of you, pat yourself on the back for a job well done. I know, it's cheesy, but it always works. It makes people laugh. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I see a lot of faces that I've already visited here, so it may be redundant, but there are some people I haven't had a chance to sit down and talk to yet. We will get together. I've been in the nonprofit world for 20 to 25 years. I started back in the 80s with So Others Might Eat downtown in Washington, D.C., part-time, and also at the same time working for Betterment for United Seniors, whose acronym was BUS, because they started off as buses for seniors in Prince George's County. And I went from working part-time for them to working full-time as their executive director, and cut my teeth on community-based organizing, working on keeping a hospital open and keeping a kidney funding at the state level. And then after that, I went into, I think the next one, I did some consulting for development because I left Betterment for United Seniors and had been working with a lot of people in the community. So I did some consulting around development in the community, and then went to work for Families USA in Washington, D.C., which is a national organization. I was based in D.C., and my field work was in southern Louisiana and southern Mississippi on Clinton's health care plan in 1994 and 95. Which was really interesting. And the reason they sent me down there was because my mother was born in Rosedale, Mississippi, which is a little teeny tiny town right on the banks of the Mississippi River. And the first thing they ask you when you go into a sit-down meeting with them down there is, who are your people? I even had one person go, oh, well, let's pull the phone book out and see if the names are still here. Well, my aunt's name was still there, but because she lived in Rosedale, Mississippi her whole entire life. So I had claims to the area, and that's why they sent me down there. I loved it. I used to go down there for 2 weeks at a time and really, really got to know the area and the people, and it was amazing. And New Orleans was in the mix, too, which didn't hurt. So after that, I came here. We moved down here to Southern Maryland, and I worked in what was then the Women's Center, doing the triage piece of it for a little while. And then I quit doing everything and went off and got my master's in story and social change from this wild and woolly college up in Vermont called Goddard, based on the principles of John Dewey. Look him up. He's wild and woolly. He fits my personality perfectly. And then after that, I did some teaching with Prince George's Community College, English, basic English, and also took clay sculpture when I was with them, which was and turned into my passion for a long time. So, and then I worked here again with the folks in the Flat Tops, Lexington Manor folks down in Lexington Park back in the early 2000s, and handed that off to the Archdiocese of Washington, and I know some of you from that work. And then I went off to be an artist, and then the economy crashed. And I kept my fingers in working down here. I worked with Port Tobacco River Conservancy over in Charles County. A girlfriend of mine who has since passed on actually pulled that group together to start with. I helped her facilitate the first 3 meetings, and then several years later they hired me as their executive director for a short period of time while they had money to pay me, and then they ran out of money. But in the meantime, we had kind of rearranged things on their board of directors so that they could go forward after I was gone. So you can see from all of that I totally understand the nonprofit world, especially the small nonprofit world, and how much it becomes a 24/7 thing. I don't know anybody that works for a nonprofit that isn't committed 24/7. The job description may not say 24/7, but the reality is you never stop thinking about it. And how to make it better, and how to make it work, and who can you talk to. So if I had had a nonprofit institute back when I was executive director of, say, Progressive Southern Maryland here in St. Mary's County, it would have been so awesome. And so I want to let you know that it is so awesome, and you all are invited to use it. Not only use it, but tell me what you need. I am totally a bottom-up person. I totally believe in coming to you because you know what you need and you know what you're doing far better than I do. Think of me as a facilitator. Think of me as a linchpin. And if I don't have the answer, I will work to find it. If I don't have the answer, I'll tell you I don't have the answer either. I have no ego involved in this. So I'm so glad to see you all here this morning, this early rainy morning, and I hope you enjoy yourself and your breakfast, and I hope that you will all keep in touch with me. I have an open door. I am here Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I'm always on email. I'm just like that. So you can always get hold of me by email. So I hope you will not hesitate to do that. Thank you.